Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Let's talk product. This is Yusuf, an engineer by academic qualification and a product manager by profession. In this video, we'll be talking about thinking via first principle. Now, you guys might be wondering, hey, how can anyone teach me how to think? Well, the assumption is pretty valid. Everyone has got a different approach towards problem solving, and no one can actually push you on how to think. But when you're in a domain such as product manager, where your decisions can impact a company or rather an industry, right, then your thinking needs to have a structured approach, right? And that is exactly what we are going to talk about in this series of video that I'll be sharing with you, right? So to begin with, we'll be talking about thinking via first principle. What is this about, and why some industry veterans stalwarts such as Elon Musk, why have they adopted it in the daily life, and that has made them one of the few successful people on earth, right? So I'll start by quoting a real life example. Quite early in my career, I got an opportunity to work as a payments product manager with one of the largest fintech companies in India. It was valued at $18 billion at that time. So after a high level meeting, a problem statement was thrown at me. Hey, Yusuf, the largest cab aggregators or the food aggregators, they hire some of the smartest folks around, and they can integrate any damn solution you throw at them. Why don't you think about that guy who wants to sell books, or that couple who claim that they have cracked the perfect recipe for a homemade pickle? What about them? What if they want to sell their products online? You cannot throw words like payment gateway integration and APIs and issuing banks and acquiring. They don't care, right? That's a huge untapped market. Why don't we think anything for them? And that's it. It was a problem statement, right? A valid problem statement, void of any solution, right? I cannot simply come up with a new payment gateway. There are n number of solutions in existing in the market. Now, here I need to think about the basic problem, and that is exactly what thinking via first principle is, right? To understand it better, okay, thinking via first principle is breaking down the problem statement layer by layer, level by level, so that you reach at a basic structure where you cannot further break it down, right? Let's talk about scientists. They do not assume anything, right? They break down the problem statements to the level where it cannot be broken down further, and they start building on it. To do that, you need to question, right? You need to question everything that you know. You need to question everything that exists, and then you will be able to start building from it. A perfect example of first principle thinking is a toddler at your home. No, you ask, you tell the toddler, hey, you need to go to bed early. The question is, why? Hey, you need to eat healthy. Why? Hey, you need to wash your hands before you eat something. Question is why? And that is the curiosity. That's a cause of frustration for most of us. We do understand, but that is the curiosity. That is the attempt to know everything, and then they will be able to build on that fundamentals, right? So this is thinking via first principle, right? Now, coming back to the problem that was given to me back at the start of my career. Now, there were two ways to approach it, right? When I was asked to build a solution, I could have gone all hunky dory and all fancy stuff. Here, there will be an OTP coming out of the thin air, and I'll automatically read OTP, and there will be auto debit. No need. But that was not the problem I was solving, right? The product would have been a catastrophic failure. For that, I again had to go to the first principle thinking. And then what exactly is the problem? There are multiple payment gateways existing in the market, right? There are multiple solutions within a payment gateway existing in the market. Why the SMEs, small and medium enterprises, why they still prefer cash, or why they still do not trust the digital transactions? India has got one of the fastest growing payment ecosystem in the world. Why are they still excluded? This is what thinking via first principle is. I'll be more formal, more detailed in the subsequent videos when I'll specifically talk about how to think via first principle. This is just to build up on the first principle thinking and a contrasting thinking. methodology that exists. The other one is thinking via analogy, right? Analogy literally means comparing between multiple variants and then coming up with the similarities between them. Now, we have talked about first principle thinking. It is essentially shattering everything, going back to the whiteboard and building from scratch. Now, this doesn't work every time, right? This is, you know, you would argue that, hey, why do I need to reinvent the wheel every time, right? When you see, when you know that something exists, why don't we simply leverage that? And this is exactly what thinking via analogy is, right? In the corporate domain, we call it reinventing the wheel, right? I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I'll simply leverage on what's existing. And a typical real life example is when your son or a daughter comes crying to me and says, hey, my friend's dad has got him a very fancy bike. Why don't you get me anything? It's an analogy, right? And you're like, hey, that's very expensive. And there's no point. It was just the last quarter when you got a tricycle. Why do you need a bicycle? And then you probably negotiate with your son or daughter, and you see okay, parent A has got a very fancy automated bicycle, parent B has got something, C has got something, and you try to find a middle way out, right? So you get a cheap solution, something that works, something that might be better than all the individual solutions combined, right? You remember those logical questions when it's like, what the pen is for paper, the paintbrush is for canvas, what the fingers are to hand, toes are to foot. It's exactly what thinking by analogy is. So a lot of places we avoid thinking by first principle and we start thinking via analogy, right? When you do not want to reinvent the wheel. There's no right or wrong way of thinking, but it depends the kind of situation you are in. We'll be having detailed discussions on both of these. And yeah, so I hope I have been able to at least shake some curious minds out there, right? So by thinking via analogy, you will be able to navigate through most of the problems in your life. That is essential because you do not want to stagnate, right? You cannot go and reinvent the wheel, go back to the drawing board at every problem that is thrown at you. You have to do some sort of competitive analysis, right? A fancy term we use to look at what others are doing, right? And then you have to leverage what the industry is already providing you. But a downside of thinking via analogy is that you stop innovating, right? If you continuously keep on tweaking what's already available in the market, you stop thinking. You will look at 5 different products, you will create a 6th product, and you will borrow features from all those 5 products. But as I said, it is required to help you navigate through your life. But when you want to do something revolutionary, it is thinking by a first principle that guides you. So I hope I have been able to at least create the preface for the upcoming videos on this topic where I'll be talking in detail. Open for questions. Please use the comments box. That will help me to address them directly in the next video. Do like or subscribe. As I said, they are the direct indicators to understand that I have been able to keep you engaged. Take care. Thank you.